This is the absolute worst lighting. I don't know if you can see, but I have a dog down here. There he is, keeping me company. This is probably going to be my last book reviews of 2019. I'm going to maybe wait till January 1st or maybe even New Year's Eve if I get the chance to do my December wrap up. I've read quite a lot in December and I'm actually really proud of myself. It's quite an achievement. So I'm just going to try and film 2 reviews in one sitting, but I'll split them into 2 videos. So the first book I'm going to talk about is Next Girl to Die by D. I still can't pronounce his name. I think it's Poirier. I'm really not sure. I got this book on Amazon a while back. I actually got these 2 books together. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure if I was buying a few at the same time and I was just buying loads to get free delivery. But I think I bought these both at the same time. They're from the same publishing company. But the first book is Next Girl to Die. I just read this. I read this in 2 days and I literally just finished it about a week ago. Maybe less than a week ago. I think I read it before Christmas. I was really excited to read this. I thought it sounds quite interesting. I'll read the back to you just so you know what it's about. My dog is just casually, I don't know if he's sleeping. He's just chilling. Solving the case will avenge her sister unless the killer finds her first. It's been 15 years since Claire Calderwood's sister Rachel was brutally murdered in their small hometown in Maine. Claire has finally carved out a life for herself as a homicide detective in Detroit, but the past comes calling when the local police back home ask for her help with a murder eerily similar to Rachel's. Still haunted by Rachel's cold case, Claire returns home, hoping to solve the crime and finally put her grief to rest. As she starts investigating, the last thing she needs is tenacious journalist Noah Washington asking questions she's not ready to answer. But like her, Noah won't give up until he finds the truth. And Claire reluctantly finds herself relying on him more and more when disturbing new details about Rachel's death comes to light. When the killer strikes once again, Claire knows he's not done. Now he's set his sights on Claire, who will have to find the courage she needs to survive a deadly confrontation years in the making. I was so excited to read this. I love a good mystery. It's set in Maine. It's set in like a small town in Maine and I can't even remember what it's called, but it's like just a little, is it a village? All I could think about was the little town in Murder, She Wrote, Cabot Cove, where Jessica Fletcher lives. I've been obsessed with Murder, She Wrote lately. I just love a simple little cheesy mystery that is like solved within the hour kind of thing. I love Murder, She Wrote. I love Angela Lansbury. It's such a good show. But I was getting massive Cabot Cove vibes from like the little small town that she grew up in. Everything about it. I was just like, oh, yes. I quite like the character of Claire to begin with. She seemed like a pretty no-nonsense gal. She takes her job very seriously. She's good at her job. I was like, yeah, I'm rooting for you, girl. Obviously, I'm interested to know about what happened to her sister Rachel. And then obviously when she goes back to her hometown. I did find it a little strange that she was drafted in by the police in her hometown to look into this case. Because all it is there's a young girl called Emma who has been killed. And her body is found in the same park where Claire's sister Rachel's body is found. So kind of similar circumstances. I think they were both strangled and they both had bits of flesh cut off them. I think Emma had one on her shoulder and Rachel's was on her ankle, and it's like revealed that they were tattoos. They've had their tattoos cut off. So that's about the only similarities. And I think there's about 15 years. Yeah, it's 15 years. 15 years between the 2 murders. I just find it a little bit strange that they would call in somebody so close to the original case. I don't know if I believe that would happen. Also the fact that she can't be that old. I don't know if I actually know what her age is, but I feel like Claire can't be that old. And yes, she's a homicide detective, so she's obviously worked her way up the ranks. But I just feel like, would they really draft her in to solve a mystery that could be linked to her own sister? I don't know about that. So then we get introduced to several characters thrown in. I kind of felt the description of her fellow police officers in the small town was a bit poor. Like, the names were just thrown in, like, I think there was a Vince, there was Jason. Jason was mentioned quite a bit. Jason, Vince, there was another guy, I think his name started with an A. I don't think it was Alan. Maybe it was Alan. And I'm pretty sure there was a fourth, but I can't remember. And it's like they weren't really given proper descriptions. It was just kind of names. And then they were only ever referenced a couple of times. I think Jason was became the main one, but that doesn't really matter. And then there was the sergeant, which I forget what his name was. Sergeant something. I can't find his name anywhere. But it won't matter. I'm going to call him Sergeant something. I think it could have been like Sergeant Michaels or something like that. So there's like your usual kind of characters. There's a mayor. There's the mayor's brother. There's a reference to fishermen because there's a lot like, that's their main kind of access to the mainland, as they call it, through these fishermen. A lot of references to water and boats because they obviously live, I think it's an island and their only access like to and from is by boat. Most characters know how to sail in boats. It'll not be a rowing boat, it'll be probably like a sailboat or something. Maybe even speedboats, that would be quite nice. So shortly after Claire's arrival, there's another murder, quite quickly. And that had me quite excited. We love a good double murder, potentially triple murder if it's connected to Rachel. So that was good fun. But then the murders kept happening at a very alarming rate. And it was almost like, what is happening? But that wasn't so bad. The body count fairly rose. And throughout the book, they're trying to make the connection as to whether or not the killer is a serial killer and could potentially be linked to all these Jane Doe cases that have never been solved, of girls who have never been identified. So there was that aspect. I did actually really enjoy this book. I feel like I was gripped to begin with. I read about a good chunk of it just in one sitting because I was so gripped and excited. But then it kind of took a little turn. And I blame Noah Washington for this. I hate romance or unnecessary romance or forced romance in mystery books or any book that has got nothing to do with romance. Sometimes I don't mind a bit of the romance thrown in if I feel like it works or if I'm rooting for the couple. I've said this in like every review I've ever done. But sometimes I just hate unnecessary forced romance. And to begin with, when Noah popped up, this journalist, asking questions and everything, and it was quite triggering for Claire because she didn't want to talk about her sister, she doesn't want to talk about that night. She alludes kind of to us that she knows more than she's letting on, but you know, we're only given tidbits over time until she eventually kind of talks about it. Oh, look at him. I am literally boring him to sleep. Sorry, I gave him a fright. I should never touch him, ever. He's way back to sleep. So Noah's a bit of a dick, to say that. So right off the bat, our girl Claire doesn't really like Noah. She's mad at him and his questions. She doesn't like journalists. There's a whole thing of like journalism and the police force kind of clashing. And I can imagine that. I can imagine that in real life. Are you gone? Did I bore you that much? He left. And then when the second murder happens, Noah appears at the crime scene. It happens like during the night. I think it's the sergeant calls Claire and Claire rushes down there, and I think Jason's already there and they're kind of cornering off the area. Before the sergeant even gets a chance to arrive, Noah's already popped up and he is taking photos of the body. And I was like, you disrespectful piece of shit. I have nothing against journalists, but I draw the line at taking photos of the body of a teenage girl who has been murdered. I know it's not real, but it probably happens in real life and it disgusts me. And obviously our character Claire was absolutely disgusted. She was saying to him, you know, like, imagine, you know, if the family sees that, blah, blah, blah. And obviously he's on the crime scene. He could be destroying evidence. I forget what that word is. I don't know if it's contaminating. But basically, yeah, getting his own DNA and his own footprints around the crime scene. And so he's disrupting it. And it's like it's just happened. The police have just arrived. Everybody wants to get that story. So I guess that's just their job. But taking photos of a deceased young girl. And then He actually published them in an article. He published photos of this dead girl in an article, and I was for losing my shit, and Claire was for losing her shit. She knew which hotel he was staying at, so she stormed round there and she spoke to the receptionist, I guess, and she knew him from school, and she was like, what room is he staying in? And he told her, and she stormed up there, and Noah's standing there in like a pair of boxers or shorts or some shit, and she says, how dare you post that article, take it down now. And of course then we have a little kind of heated heart to heart, I suppose, where obviously Claire tells him why this is so disrespectful. Imagine if the family has to see this. She has a younger sister. Just take it down. And then Noah explains why he's so invested in stories like Rachel and Emma's and the other girl's death. I don't want to reveal that death because it did come as a bit of a shock to me. But I guess now that I think about it, maybe not. I can't even remember now what it was. I think it was his friend's mum had been killed years before. And she was like a second mum to him. Became like a second mum to him, and she was lovely and blah blah blah. And then she was killed, or she was murdered, and the police called her a sex worker and basically kind of put it down to that. And he was convinced that it was connected to a serial killer at the time, and he linked it to like 6 or 7 other deaths. And so then our girl Claire calms down, and they order pizza, and they have a few beers, and he basically draws up all the information that he's picked up over the years of Jane Doe's that could potentially be linked to Rachel's death and Emma's death. So obviously Claire, she's happy enough to receive this information and go over it. My only issue with this kind of newfound aspect of Claire and Noah now kind of joining up as a double act, you know, the detective and the journalist, I just feel it was a massive U-turn from suddenly disliking him and hating being in his presence and just despising him. And especially after he posted that article and she was so mad about it, till she suddenly calmed down and now they're best buds solving crimes together. I don't know. It was we love a love to hate, hate to love relationship, but it was very quick for me. I need time. Like at this stage, I didn't like Noah. I despised him. And now I'm just expected to suddenly love him because, oh yeah, he's connected to this somehow too, and he's got information that he's been digging up. I'm like a meerkat when there's something happening outside. So there was that. And then we had a very vivid sex scene between the two of them at one point, and I didn't need that. I really didn't. The only time I ever love reading smut is if I'm reading fan fiction. I love a good fan fiction if it's done well and it's not too cliche and cringy. I love a good fan fiction, and if there's some smut in there, I tend to love it. But for some reason now, in books, I don't enjoy it. And maybe that's because if I'm reading a fan fiction, I'm reading about characters that I love. You know, if it's like Harry Potter or, I don't know, the Avengers. Like, we love those characters. I love them with all my heart. So if I'm reading something about them, it's because I love them. So, how sad am I? Oh god. So when it's happening between two characters that I don't particularly, by this point, I'd kind of went off Claire, and I didn't like Noah. So I'm expected to suddenly be enjoying this. And the thing was as well that bothered me was it was written like a fan fiction or like a bad like Wattpad story. The kind of the cringy sex scene and the way it was described. But it was just a bit too... You could talk about it in a way that we know what's going down, but I ain't here for this 50 Shades shit. If I wanted to read about it, I'd read something like 50 Shades of Grey or all those other kind of smutty stories that want to be 50 Shades so hard. I'm not wanting it in my mystery book. I think I should stick to YA. But even that, I'm gonna have to read kids' stories at this rate. Not YA, I'll need to read for like preteens. I am struggling so much now with smut. I just don't need it. I could go my whole life without reading about Claire Calderwood and Noah Washington having sex. At least it only happened once. that I know of. We only ever got the one sex scene. And even afterwards, even though they always mentioned about her staying over and they'd stay up all night looking into the case, there never was any mention of them ever having sex again. And suddenly, it's like, were they dating? They never had a conversation to say they were dating. They just had like sex once. So they had sex before they even kissed. So it's like, I don't know. I'm getting heated just thinking about this book. I wrote a review on Goodreads. I might actually link that down below. Oh my god, this is so tiny. How am I gonna read? Oh, look at the size of that review that I left. I went into full detail about this. Yeah, okay. So this is one thing I picked up on that had me mad. I loved how, like, no nonsense Claire was in the beginning and how invested she was in the case. But then, after, like, her and Noah, after she asked him to take down the article, and he did, and they had pizza and they stayed up talking about other cases that, other unsolved cases that could be linked to the current case. After that, every time she was around Noah, she just kept referencing, like, how he was making her feel and saying, like, oh, standing so close to him, I could feel the heat radiate off his body. I wish he would hold my hand. At one point, she made a comment about how she wished she could just take him up the stairs and take him right down. I was like, what has this got to do with the case? I don't know, it kind of bothered me that she just then after that, it was like, I just noticed a change in her. Like, she became like a giddy schoolgirl and I was a bit kind of like, no. And then the sergeant actually asks Noah to help out on the case. Not the current investigation into the Emma's death and then this new death, and then by this point there's probably been another. As I say, Rachel's was like kind of the first, you may say. As far as like we're concerned, or Claire should be concerned, she was drafted back to her hometown because of Emma's death, and then while she's there, a couple of days later, another girl dies, and then as I say, literally after that, it was like another death, and then a couple of days later there was another death, and another death, and it was quite a lot. It was a lot. And so then the sergeant takes Noah on to basically, he's to kind of be involved in Rachel's death, but only Rachel's death, so he can look into stuff and find information that's to do with Rachel, but only Rachel, nothing to do with anything else. So obviously Claire can't really talk to him about anything to do with the ongoing case. And I feel like, do the police do that? Would they actually, like, it's one thing maybe turn to the press for help if they kind of release a certain specific article or something, but to actually ask him to practically investigate Rachel's death was a bit like, huh? What? Nuh-uh. Yeah, so I think that was my main issues up until that point. I had a theory on who I thought the killer was, and I was so convinced. I was like, it's gonna be this big surprise U-turn. It's gonna be this. My only reason being, I don't really want to give anything away at all, but it was to do with, because of the fact that all these bodies of all the people that have been killed, Rachel, Emma, the other ones, all had bits of flesh removed from their bodies, and they were tattoos. I'm not even going to say what the tattoos were of, but the connection with the tattoos and what they symbolised, I may say, I had this theory, and I was like, this is going to be a massive shock U-turn. It's going to be such a surprise because all kind of certain aspects kind of linked to other characters. We think it could be this person, we think it could be that person. I was like, oh my god, am I going to be right? But I was not right. I was wrong. I was actually very disappointed with who the killer was. Actually, at one point, when I was reading it, about halfway into it, the person that did end up being the killer, I'd actually forgotten about this character. And this wasn't them being mentioned as the killer. It just happened to be a conversation that happened between the killer and Claire. This was obviously before she knew that they weren't the killer. You get me? And they had a conversation, and I remember thinking, wait, what? Who's this again? Like, the name was just brought up, like, as if to say, like, I'm gonna use a fake name. I'm gonna say Bob. It's not Bob. But it's like, she was walking down the street or something, and she saw Bob. And she went to go speak to Bob. And I remember reading it, and I was thinking, who? Who's this again? And I was gonna flick back through to see, like, to double check, like, oh yeah, when were we first introduced to this character? Who are they? What did they do? Then I decided against it, so now they're not going to be important. And they turned out to be the killer. And I was like, are you joking me? Are you actually joking me? So my issue with the ending and the reveal, so to speak, I found it a bit shit. And this was the only reason that brought my review down to, I gave this 3 stars out of 5. This was the main reason that I felt my review or my rating was brought down by this. Like, I could deal with the whole Noah thing because he wasn't a massive part of this. He ended up being in it quite a bit, but not too much that it drove me completely insane and made me hate the book. I could tolerate it after a while. The thing was, though, just with the ending, for a good little while, Claire has a theory that's linked to kind of characters that are no longer living. It was kind of linked to the old sheriff. I don't really want to go into too much detail about that, but she kind of had this thing, the old sheriff who's now dead, deceased, and stuff like that, stuff to do with him. She begins to think that he was covering up all these cases in the past. She's wondering why, who would he be defending? I was still rooting for my killer. To this day, I still believe it was them. I believe. Claire makes a connection to the old sheriff, that he may have been potentially covering up these cases that are actually all linked together. That's fine. And then she does make a little kind of connection of who she does think the killer is. And we kind of run with this for a while, that Claire has a massive suspicion, but nothing can really be done about it. And I was kind of, in my mind I was thinking, I really hope there's going to be some sort of shock twist and this isn't going to be the killer. Because for them to be kind of hinting at it or saying for a while, this is the killer, this is the killer, this is the killer, and nothing was ever really done because they had no evidence or whatever, it was a bit depressing. Like, it was a bit shit. I like being surprised when it comes to, like, mysteries. I love a shock twist. I also forgot to mention, for a while, Claire is clearly being targeted by the killer. The first thing is that when she's in a building, an old building, looking through storage boxes of old cases, the building she's in is set on fire. And then all the other files are burned. She makes it out with her sister's file, which is missing a lot of information. Someone tried to set her on fire, basically. Or tried to kill her in a fire. Then there was something else. There was a screwdriver shoved into, I can't remember what it was. It was a box of some sort. Was it her tank? Was it her petrol tank? And like all the petrol came out. So there was that as well. Then the third thing was somebody tried to strangle her in the dark in her own home. That was really bugging me because she couldn't make out his voice. Like, they were in the dark, fair enough. But could you not, you're a detective, right? I know it's dark and you were fighting against him. Could you not kind of make out his build? Could you not, like, no one can disguise their voice that much. Especially in a kind of scuffle or whatever, trying to kill you. I can hear my dog scratching. I refuse to believe that she couldn't recognize his voice. If somebody I knew tried to strangle me in the dark, I'd like to think that I'd know their voice. I hope so anyway. But that was that thing. And then, when she's then questioning the person that she thinks is the killer with someone else, and she goes round to their house and she sees scratches on their arms and their face, and she knows that she fended off her attacker with her nails, scratching and clawing at them, she was hoping to like really dig in to get DNA under her fingertips. And this person is covered in scratches, and their excuse is they had a fight with a cat. No, you didn't! Is that circumstantial? I'd be really, And then the grand finale. We have police patrols on the street in town. We have police watching the killer's house, because by this point we know it's the killer. We know it is. And they're watching, and Claire and Noah and Claire's family all go to a kind of memorial at the church, and then Claire goes to take a phone call outside, and what happens? She is kidnapped. She's kidnapped by the killer. Are you dumb? Are the police in this town dumb? How did this person escape? I can't. And also, I never realized this, but it was pointed out in a review that she had her gun with her, and then she's abducted and she's put in a little boat, and the killer, pokes holes in the boat, gonna drown her because she didn't do anything wrong really, she's just getting in the way, so they can't give her the same death they gave to the others because reasons, and so Claire is gonna be drowned in this little boat as it sinks. But somehow she's able to untangle herself, she gets like her hands free, and then she's able to, and then she swims to shore and she takes off after the killer, and she still has her gun. Why did the killer not take the gun off her? That's like kidnapping 101. You take off their phones, you take off their weapons, especially if it's a police officer. Also at this point, I would just like to point out, there was literally like 10 pages to go when this was all kicking off. And it all happened very quickly. She was kidnapped, she was free, she was swimming ashore, she was taken off after the killer, everybody was after the killer, there was scuffles, she's rugby tackling the killer, it's over, we've caught him. Moving on, flash forward, Noah and Claire are now sitting in his hotel room. Claire gets a call telling her that there's been another murder in a town across the bay. Can she help them? I'm sorry, is this Sherlock Holmes consulting detective? Why? Do the police actually do that, in all honesty? Like, if a police officer solves a crime in my small town, will the police in another small town be like, you solved that crime? Come and take a look at ours. We are stumped. I don't know. I always kind of feel like, don't the police try and solve it themselves? And then if they're stumped, like they call Claire to come solve this crime and the body's not even cold. So that makes me think they took one look at it and thought, well, I'm stumped. Let's call in somebody else. I feel like, don't the police like try and look into it as much as possible themselves, and then once they're stumped, it's like, yep, we got this DI on the case to look into it, and he had some great new ideas. I actually said in my review, even the ending of Claire getting a phone call from a town across the bay asking her to investigate a murder for them was very Sherlock Holmes consulting detective. Since this is a series, I'm assuming Claire and Noah are the new Holmes and Watson solving crimes together, the detective and the journalist. This is a series, by the way. There is a second book. I don't think I could face reading it. I really don't. Oh no. This is why I just gave this book 3 out of 5. Very rushed ending. Was very disappointing. The killer was a bit disappointing. The motive did end up being the motive I thought it was going to be. I was just wishing for a better killer. And as I say, it didn't really shock me. I wasn't so surprised. It was just like, okay, yep, that happened. So I really don't know. I probably won't read the next book in the series because I just didn't like it. The pacing itself was actually pretty good up until the very end, like the last couple of chapters. I couldn't actually believe it when I was literally a few pages. Like, let me just have a little look, okay? On page 282, she's abducted. By page 288, we got him. Then chapter 36, oh, it is Sergeant Michaels. Chapter 36 is all about getting him to prison and them talking about it. And by 294, it's all over. Hoo-hoo, hoo-hoo. This is what, I was right. He literally called her down and he says that I was hoping I could get your help with something here. We found a body, a young girl, she was dumped in a motel. She asked what was the state. He says, what was the state of decomp? He says there isn't any, the body was barely cold when we found her. I mean, you haven't even looked into it in the slightest. You might be able to solve it yourselves. But yeah, so considering it took 12 pages from when Claire's kind of confronted by the killer and then it ends. I love a good ending. A satisfactory ending. It was satisfying, I guess. It was just very rushed. A rushed ending. I don't like rushed endings. I love a nice, everything's tied together, happy ending. And there were a few unanswered questions. My main one being that why was Claire's mum so against anybody looking into the death of her daughter, Rachel. She was so against it. She stopped speaking to Claire's grandmother because she was kind of like asking questions about it. So for a while, you think the mum's involved somehow. And Rachel's forever kind of talking about her mum in a weird way, as if she's some sort of, not abusive parent, but like, I don't know. She spoke about it in weird ways, as if they had quite a strained relationship, but then acted like her mother loved her very much and blah, blah, blah. But yet her mother was like very kind of, she never spoke about Rachel. She didn't want anybody like basically investigating it. So that was like weird. But mother, fair enough if you don't want to talk about your daughter's death. Okay, that's fair enough if it's troubling for you. But what mother would not want justice for her daughter, even if you despised her a little bit or you didn't approve of her choices? So yeah, there was that. So that was my review of Next Girl to Die. I gave it a 3 out of 5. Somebody might enjoy it more than I will, more than I did, but it was just kind of... So thank you all for watching, and I'm about to just hop on and film another review. So if you see me wearing the same clothes, that's why, because it's the same shit, different day. No, same day, different shit. But yeah, so thank you so much for watching. I shall see you in the next one, which will be in like a couple minutes time. Bye guys.